In An American Werewolf in London, there is a fantastic scene where the eponymous creature stalks a man in the underground. Aside from the compelling performance of the terrified man, the creative editing and the wonderful practical effects, what makes this scene so brilliant is the tension that is imbued. H.P. Lovecraft famously said that the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Tension is not all about fear, but the principle of how to create good tension is the same. It is the prospect of the unknown. That outcomes and consequences will happen, but we don't know how or when is the essence of good tension. By obscuring elements of the future from our audience, but making it clear that this situation has a very real prospect of ending badly, we establish immediate stakes that contribute to the tension our readers will feel. Returning to An American Werewolf in London to illustrate this, for almost 3 minutes we do not see the werewolf. We hear sounds, we watch the man's fear grow, we know that there is a danger here. He knows it too. We're not entirely sure what form it will take, but it is absolutely certain that something bad has a very real chance of happening. The setting, a man alone at night hearing animalistic noises in what should be an animal-free zone, means that we have every reason to expect something negative. As the scene develops, we only see the man's reaction. As the fear builds and the tension takes a darker, more sinister turn, the camera starts to follow from the perspective of the pursuer. We see panic take hold. We know we're getting closer to the point of failure, yet we never see the adversary until the end. Nor are we told explicitly what the consequences are about to be for the man. Such is the power of tension, that the unknown feeds our fear and hooks us to the scene. In a previous video, I've discussed the opening of Inglourious Basterds and referred to its use of tension there. Lessons from the Screenplay did a great video on the suspense in that scene that I'll link below, and is well worth checking out, but what I love so much about this scene is the transition from tension to suspense. How we go from a sense of unease and anticipation to one of dread and fear. For today's video, however, let's focus on the tension in this scene. What the scene does so well is showing the characters, their expressions and outfits, and building an implication of what threat there is. It's not specific enough to be suspenseful, but we, as the audience, have a clear feeling of anticipation that something will go wrong. The point of tension when you're writing a book is to hook your reader, to make the story less predictable so that they will become invested in discovering the consequences of a setting or a character's actions. There's a reason we fall silent when a tense scene sucks us in, or why we jump when somebody speaks to us while we're reading a tense passage. Tension makes us invest. It makes us want to wrench our eyes away because of the fear, but our curiosity compels us to be glued to the page. So, how do we do it? The key with tension is to build it effectively. That starts by establishing stakes and goals for our characters. This gives us a good point of reference that we can contrast with the reality of the situation and its changing path. Once we've got that, we need some form of conflict to be introduced. This can be explicit, but generally implicit threats work better, as they leave some of the fear to the audience's imagination. We don't see the werewolf, but its noises imply hostility. Hans Lander is wearing a Gestapo uniform, even though he's seemingly charming and friendly. Implied conflict allows us to tense as we expect the point of friction to occur at any point. This is where we need to introduce some pace. All good tension starts slowly. We want to drip feed our audience enough information that they can anticipate something going wrong, but not so much that they are able to accurately predict what will happen. They may still be scared, but "see, I knew it" isn't as satisfying as a fear-filled silence. As Hitchcock's famous clock ticks away, the more tension builds. So start slowly, keep things subtle and full of doubt. Slow pace builds anxiety that will create tension in return. We can't keep this pace for too long, however, or our audience will start to relax. If they relax, we may be able to surprise them at the point of revelation, but we don't want that. We want tension and chaos, not shock. So we have to gently increase the pace of our scene or story. Make sure we are moving. ever more quickly so that the pace we end up at is just as terrifying as the slow plot, as because it makes the negative ending feel inevitable. We're now moving so fast that we can't stop. But we can. We can slow back down if we want to. Altering the pace can make your story even more unpredictable, but we do have to be careful that we're not bluffing or misleading our audience. This can, again, turn off our reader as they lose trust in us and feel manipulated. So while we can change the pace, like the brief pause before the revelation in Werewolf, it allows for that extra moment and drop of dread. The other point that is important for tension before the revelation is the characters who the tension is happening to. In The Descent, it is established that the 6 women are all expert adventurers. That is set up in detail beforehand. They have the lingo, the equipment, the casual attitude to caving that comes with experience, and overcome several problems early on that demonstrate their skill. That's why when things start to go wrong, we feel extra tension. If these experts are struggling, then the situation is far from ideal, and we have another reason to be afraid. Similarly, the French farmer is a sympathetic character who we don't want to see bad things happen to. He is vulnerable compared to his adversary, and that makes us worry all the more. In Werewolf, the man is an everyday worker who we know is wholly unprepared for what he is facing. They are relatable to many of us who commute by tube, and that makes us feel that extra ounce of tension as things unfold. So once we've got all the ingredients in place and the tension has been built, we have to reveal our cause of tension. That may be showing the monster, having failure come into fruition, releasing the tension with a moment of ecstatic escape or the emotional punch at the point of risk. Or we can move into suspense. The revelation has to be timed correctly. Too early and it feels rushed, too late and it feels manipulative. Our audience can hold the tension for time, but once it breaks, it's hard to build that back up within the same story, so you need to make sure you release that tension at the moment of optimal emotional impact. Where that is will depend on you and what emotion you want from your reader, but all that effort needs to be rewarded with a lot of payoff. The more tension you build, the higher the anticipation, and therefore the more important it is to time everything right. I should say a final point, which is that tension isn't exclusive to horror or thrillers like the examples I've been using today. Tension is any sense of anticipation. It can be romantic tension, time tension, achievement tension, recovery tension, and so on. Anytime there is a goal that needs or wants to be achieved, and a chance that it can fail, we have an opportunity to increase tension. In any sporting challenge, somebody has to lose. In every romantic interaction, there is a chance for rejection or conflict. In any medical emergency, there is a chance of failure. There is a tension everywhere, and in most interactions that involve character goals. Just remember that you don't need to explain and show everything. Instead, use the unknown and the anxiety and fear that it creates to make your story even more gripping.